I'm Juri Ferri, and I'm the writer and director of UB-13. So UB-13 is set in a German submarine during World War One. It's set entirely in this submarine. The captain is very ambitious and young, and he would like to end his patrol successfully. So when he gets the chance to try to sink an enemy ship, he decides to go for it, even though his second in command discourages him from doing that. Well, they do. They miss. They didn't manage. They don't manage to sink the ship, and the ship fires back, and this forces them to hide on the bottom of the sea for several hours. What inspired the story and grabbed you as a filmmaker to create it? So the main inspiration from UB-13 came from an image, a picture of the interior of a submarine during the First World War, and these submarines, they were very small, very dirty. They were very crazy environments full of pipes and wheels and gauges. And I find it incredible that submarine crew were all volunteers. It was an elite section of the Navy, and people were actually willing to participate and take part going out at sea with a ship like that. And I was really impressed, and I wanted to explore what would have gone on in the mind and in the heart of someone that was involved in a war operation on a submarine like that. What difficulties, if any, did you have to overcome to make the film? Now, several. There were several challenges connected to making this film. First of all, it was set. It's entirely set inside a submarine, so we had to recreate the submarine interiors in a studio with very limited budget and limited space and limited options. Um, we also were shooting on film on 35 millimeter, and we had a limited set amount of footage we could use, about half an hour for the whole film. So we could only do really one take, maximum two when really necessary. But we had to be very careful and very rigorous with the amount of stock we were using. And I would say the third challenge was that I decided the film should be completely spoken in German. Well, I don't speak the language, but I thought it would be um, necessary to keep the film in German. It's a German story about German characters, and it wouldn't feel appropriate to do it in any other language. And I have to say, of all the things, the language might have been the one that scared me the most at first, but it turned out to be actually quite easy. Was the subject matter difficult to shoot, and how do you think you did in portraying it? Now, as I was saying before, it was quite difficult because of the limited space and because everything takes place in the same space. So I was trying to find different and creative ways to film these interiors of the submarine. And I have to say, I think I managed to give the film a good distinctive look, going for black and white cinematography, very harsh lights, hard lights and contrasts, and some unusual camera positions. I have to say, if I could, I would do something differently. I would maybe add even more variety in the kind of shots that I use. How long did it take to finally lock in the script? So this was a student film from my studies at the London Film School, and we had a set time, a set date, a set production dates, limited times for building the set and shooting. So I was limited in the time I could work on the script. But I was always encouraged by my tutors to keep working on the script all the way up until the very end. So I would say until 2 weeks before the shooting, I was still working on the script, and it took me a couple of months to really find the proper way to tell this story. Did you have any budget? How did you go about funding the film? So as I was saying, this was a London Film School student production. The studio was provided, and the camera equipment was provided, and all the crew were students from the film school. Um, the only budget we had was a production allowance given from the film school, which had all to go into, well, for the most part, into the set construction and the set design and costume hire, prop hire, and also to catering and travel expenses. Um, but it wasn't a lot, so we were quite limited in what we could do in the set design. But we managed to use our budget very managed to use our budget very wisely, and I think we got the maximum value out of it. How long have you been making films for? So, as I was saying, I was a film student at the time when I made the film, which is about 2 years ago now. Um, so, this UB-13 was my first short film that I shot about 2 years ago. And since then, I've made another short film, my graduation film from the London Film School, which is called Meidagen, Days of May. Do it all again the same way? If not, what would you change to make it even better? Now, I think um, we had very clearly in mind that it had to be a small set and it had to be claustrophobic to give the idea of how small and claustrophobic these submarines were. But I do think we've been a bit too safe on the size of it. I think it could have made it even smaller, even more claustrophobic. Right now, it looks a bit too comfortable sometimes. So that's one of the things I would change. But there's so many other things that I was so happy about the decisions I made, and I would definitely do them all again, even though I've definitely grown a lot as a filmmaker since I made that film. Who inspires you as a filmmaker? Now, there could be so many names of great directors of the past I could talk about, but I do think what I find most inspiring is being in close contact with other filmmakers and colleagues and working together. That I find the biggest inspiration of them all, and that's how social and how much of a collaboration this art form is what really inspires me to keep making films. What camera did you use to shoot the film on? So as I was saying before, this film was shot on film, analog film, 35mm, and the camera was provided by the London Film School. It was a Movicam Super America. That is an old camera from the 70s. And it is that old. It's probably 30, 40 years old at least. Countless of student films have been shot with it. Occasionally it would act up, give us problems that cause a little bit of delays on set, but I do think that the experience of shooting on film was absolutely worth worth using it. What's next for you and your team? So I recently finished my second short film after UB-13, Meidagen, also called Days of May, and that was my graduation film from the London Film School. So I recently also graduated. So I've been taking some time to develop new ideas, and I have a few of them in mind that I'm working on at the same time. Of course, lockdown stopped a lot of things in its tracks, so I'm taking this time mostly to write and develop different ideas, and I'm not really sure what is going to come to fruition first. But what I would really like to do is to shoot a film in my hometown in Italy.